Concept review. Oh, she's been active. Thank you.
Good, how about yourself?
Will you introduce yourselves for the record?
I'm David Farron, architect, with Monitoring and Eddie Gutierrez.
Thank you. And I will read the motion. Preliminary approval and continued 2 weeks with the following comments. The owner's recognition of the value of this house and willingness to revitalize it in a sensitive way is greatly appreciated. Restudy the screening of the staircase and simplify the roof deck covering. Thank you.
Thank you. One thing that we had last time that I...
You're on, but maybe you might want to move it closer, maybe.
That we didn't focus much on this perspective drawing before, but one of the suggestions was to show the tree and the adjacent surroundings, and this does that. This is from a photograph. And you can see the two-story apartment building on the side yard of the building, and this is the tree that's actually in the neighbor behind, right near the property line, and the neighbor behind them. You can see the prominence of the tree in relation to the proposed project. And here's some of a tree that's in the front yard, a couple of trees.
Thank you.
As far as the roof deck cover, we studied this and came up with a simpler design that we think is still consistent with arts and crafts style, but is not really mimicking as much the entry cover. And then on the stairway screen at the back of the deck, we changed kind of a gradient type pattern that we had before to an ABBA pattern. So we have smaller boards and two wider boards, and a smaller board and two wider boards, and so on. And that continues around the back. The back door to the garage accesses through a hole in that screen, and then we lowered the guardrail line of the stairs. Another just general comment I wanted to make, especially in light of the solar review that you just had.
Must you revisit this?
Next time we come back to you, we're going to show you where we would like to also place solar. But it will, I think it's a little different situation. Obviously, it's a house. We're going to propose it on the west elevation, which would be very difficult to see from the public way. And there are different solutions that we're looking at proposing, but we're proposing the panels to be at the same angle as the roof, and potentially using the shingle-type solar. And so if you have any comments for us at this stage on that, that would be welcome.
Thank you. I'll open this to public comment. Is there any public comment? Seeing none. I do have a question for staff. The minutes say that we made a preliminary approval and continued, yet the agenda says it's a concept review continued. Where are we?
Yeah, I've got an action that you did give last on 3409 preliminary to continuance to full board, so that the agenda is kind of split out.
Okay. So you're further ahead than you thought. Okay. So my guess would be this is an in-progress review then?
That's what we're understanding,
Okay.
and hoping
Sure.
that maybe we can get
Okay.
a consent after this, possibly.
All right. Questions from the rest of the commission?
The top of that structure looks different. What's different? Did you take away some timbers, or?
The top of the
How
structure.
did you simplify it?
Actually, there were two horizontal members, similar to what the existing front
Okay.
entry has. And there was more vertical elements in the top of the gable, and it had, the wider, bulkier ones separating the two horizontal elements. This also allowed us to lower the roof a few inches.
Thank you. Any further questions? Comments, please?
I think it's just great. I think it's just terrific, and it's simplified somehow. It feels lighter, better. Really like it.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Madam Chair, I would second Commissioner Adams' comments. I think it's really lovely to bring this. It's got stucco on it now, I believe, isn't it? And you're just going to bring it back to how it was.
Yeah, it needs some work, so this would be the improvement that we do with it too.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful.
I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Well, this is an in progress, so we're at preliminary. You're going to confirm our preliminary approval with the changes. And then he is looking for a return to consent, but I think...
Come back to us at all?
Final on consent?
I would continue to consent.
Then is that motion... Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? There you go.
Touch the solar.
No, what you described sounds perfectly...
Okay.
We're looking into all the choices. I think
Yeah.
we want the shingle ones ourselves anyway.
Yes.
I think they're much better. And I've seen some solar panels around, and I think there are a lot. It make the house look, unattractive in some ways.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Okay, this moves down, Paula goes down to... Next item is 113 Harbour Way, and we're 5 minutes early. No, we're still an hour behind. I'm sorry, it's 5:40, not 4:40. You've been waiting. I was trying. Darn. I was hoping. I thought, boy, I couldn't believe we'd pull it up that fast. Oh,
Actually,
well.
it's only 55 minutes, so it's not an hour. Don't feel bad about
Daylight
it.
savings time. That's the problem.
That's exactly right.
That's it. Oh, darn. Okay. Yes. Okay. If you'll introduce yourselves for the record. Darn.
I'm David Van Hoy, architect.
Steve Hislop, owner, Chuck's Waterfront Grill and the Endless Summer Bar Cafe.
Thank you. I will read the motion from the last time this was here. Okay. Preliminary approval and continued indefinitely to full board with the comment for the applicant to return with in-progress drawings, materials, and more information on the fittings and color proposals for the building, making the historic resource findings that the project will not cause a substantial adverse change in the significance of an historical resource, and reopened findings for alterations to a historic landmark, that the exterior alterations are being made primarily for the purposes of restoring the landmark to its original appearance or in order to substantially aid in the preservation or enhancement of the landmark. You are here to renew your preliminary approval because it has expired, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And a couple of other housekeeping issues. In addition to that, should the board find that we have done what you've asked, we'd also, this is a very complete set of construction documents and engineering, so we would like you to entertain some path to final approval as well, whatever that might be appropriate. And also on the agenda, I don't know if you all took care of this earlier, but there's a little bit of a typo in terms of George Ryder, who's here today, who's representing the Maritime Museum. Is actually not the owner. He's actually an interested party, or whatever that term is, so just to keep the paperwork straight.
Thank you.
I don't know how you keep all this stuff straight. So that being said, we were here just a little over a year ago with a refined version, and again, thanks to the subcommittee, two of which are still on the board, Ms. Murray and Mr. Sharp, and Mr. Lavoie, who was also part of that subcommittee process. We were back with Very detailed drawings, and what we've done is refine engineering, and what we've done for the last year is refine engineering, do some cost estimating. We're building something, that's very much of a one-off prototype, and so it's taken some work to make sense out of it all and make it, it got very fat for a while, and to refine the engineering and the fabrication back to where it's nice and delicate and very ship-like again, which I think we have achieved. So it's just taken some time. We have on the first page a basic floor plan, and again, just as a matter of orientation, this is the complete waterfront center. Our work is limited to one of the patios, and it's really limited to the sail coverings. This is to provide weather protection, both sun and drizzle and rain and wind, for the dining patio, so that it can be used more hours during the year. The geometry of the sails is now set, and this plan really just orients you to the location of the mast, which hasn't moved, and the 4 sail supports as well. The design that we shared with the commission a little over a year ago has not changed. It's really just been refined, and we have colors and materials in more detail for you. So we have now actually refined the geometry of all the sail supports, and work them out for head heights, and incorporating clearing the windscreen. The windscreen has been actually lowered by 6 inches. It's now 5.5 feet tall instead of 6 feet tall, which helps the lowest clearance here, so that we didn't need to raise all the sails. We've actually lowered the mast slightly, and things have refined as you can see. We have detailing for the windscreen. It's again a glass windscreen to protect from wind, and also to allow the wonderful views out to the harbor. And so the design, these plates are actually mounted to the face of the existing concrete wall. So the dark line is what you see in real life, and you see an air gap at the bottom, and then sheets of glass, and then 2 pieces of powder-coated steel, which are 1/2 inch by 6 inches in dimension, roughly the size of my hand here, 2 of them side by side, that resist the wind forces. And so they're very, very delicate and light, mostly disappearing for benefit of people looking in and people looking out. We can go back to any of these details that you care to along the way. Because I'm too cheap to print all these sets in color, these are actually color versions of this. I thought it would help for you all to see. We've got a site plan. These are all views from the 3D model, which this is not a project that one can draw or figure out in 2-dimensional elevations. And so this image here starts to show you the feeling for the building. Again, we're also here to confirm there's been research done, and we have brush outs for the building color as well. As you recall, we have that historic picture of the old building color that was part of our proposal as well. So you see really the context of the project there as we go down to basically more human view. We still have the same basic upright, the bow shape inspired by windsurfing, and the nice lines of sailboats holding 2 corners of the sail. This little Y shape here, which is one of the things, along with the compression strut here, one of the things that allowed the steel to really reduce by over 50% in size. It becomes very much like the mast of a sailboat with the tensioning cables here, which anchor down. We've been able to engineer the project such that there are no new, one new footing required for one of the masts. These 2 sit on an existing wall. This one sits on an existing wall. The tie down sits to an existing wall. This one ties to an existing wall, and these 2 go down into the garden. So we've been very, very light on using the existing elements there to the degree possible. There is a footing under the mast as well, as you might imagine. Materials we'll talk about in a second, but I might leave this out for that discussion. A couple of views from the interior. What's it like to be on the inside of this as well? And so this is basically inside, looking out at the harbor. And you see the transparency of the windscreens here. I've tinted them abnormally. It's clear glass, but if I showed you clear glass, then you wouldn't be able to see it. And you start to see the feeling and the sort of light enclosure, or at least the covering, but we also don't want to block the views. And again, looking from inside, looking along the length of the building, and you start to just get this real nice, the sculptural aspects really as you move around are quite nice, I think. The lighting that we've worked out has integrated into the design as well. You'll see these small fixtures that are actually part of the sail assembly, rather than having yet another design element with lanterns or more posts or more things in the way. We've been able to basically visually extend these struts through, and then we have an approximately 10-inch by 10-inch fixture that will throw light up. It's on the fat end of the sail, that will throw light up and bounce soft into the patio area. And then we've got a handful of small BK fixtures. They're about this long and about that big around, about 2 inches in diameter, and they have the ability to hit basically the dead spots, if you will, in that corner. So we feel that we're going to get very adequate lighting, and sort of these are all above eye level and cut-off fixtures such that there won't be any glare in people's eyes like lanterns and a lot of other type of lighting or things hanging from the top and that would create. So it creates light with very, very discrete fixturing. And then a view from the central patio, the main entry plaza that then splits to the patio that belongs to the Maritime Museum as well as this patio. So these are the existing steps that go up and gives you another little feel of, and again, the sails look quite a bit different from that side as well. We go on to a very simple palette of materials. There's actually two of these if you want to keep one. The windscreen uprights are proposed to be powder-coated bronze to match the existing railings that are around the harbor and actually on this building as well. It's basically kind of a nice darkish medium bronze, and we will match that color with these. They were white at one point in time, and it turned out, to our eye, they're much quieter and much less present as a darker color when you're really there in real life, and let the sails and the supports be very nautical and just let these be as invisible as possible. The light fixture that mounts to the supports that's the model number, and there's a photograph of the real fixture. It can tilt about 10 degrees up and down, so it gives us a little bit of fine-tuning, and all of these are dimmable as well, so that it'll be down most of the time when you're having events. This is a multi-purpose kind of thing. It'll be used for dining in some events over its life. The small little BK fixtures, again, I have fixture, the details should you want to see those. The sails are where are the sails? Our material brochure. I've got a couple of these for the board. We can pass those along. This is the material proposed for the sails. My early dream of using real sailcloth has been convinced otherwise based on sails. If you wonder why they're always wrapped up in canvas when they're in the harbor, it's because they don't like ultraviolet light and they don't like all the things that happen to them. And they won't last, basically. And also, the real technology for these sails is they will be slightly curved on the sides and then have cables at their edges. It's actually this one right here.
Okay.
We were going to use that one, but we chose. I'm just kidding. We're just using the white one to keep the sails taut. They need to do what most sails are designed to hold the wind and produce power out of that. These, so they don't flap around and end up over at City College, need to be held fairly taut. And so the engineering from another discipline for the tensile structure has ended up with that solution. The building color, there are some brush outs here. Here's again the old historic photograph showing some great boats and things in the foreground. This is the proposed color, which has been worked on with combining the scrapings off of the building, looking at other buildings in the El Pueblo Viejo district that are similar in color, working with all of those things. And this is basically a custom color named Harbor Sunrise, for lack of a better name. It's not in anybody's catalog. It's being custom made by ICI Dulux. And we've got a couple of brush outs, but that gives you all an idea of basically that color being what this bleached out photograph is.
What about the doors and windows?
The doors and windows were originally white. They are currently a sort of a Santa Barbara blue color. The waterfront department is really in charge of painting the building, and Steve may want to talk about this a little bit. And so this is also a color that's been designed to work with the existing sash color. Should that pose to be a a budget problem and something that will work obviously well with the original white color. So we're sort of, I'm a little bit out of the I don't have my hands on the wheel as far as the sash color, to be honest with you. What else is on the list here? And I didn't really know how to describe the color for the sail supports other than to take a picture of a boat hull. I mean, it's really our desire to make this an element. When we were out there with the subcommittee, we could sit there and stare at the building, or we could turn around and look out at the wonderful rigging and masts and sails and fabric and so forth out in the harbor. And so our, that standard beautiful white boat hull is a color that we will match with the powder coating of the sail supports.
Thank you.
And should you decide to look at things, we've got, again, fixture cuts and technical information on the light fixtures and just some additional site photos if we have questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
have a question.
Can I go to the public first?
Oh, the public. Yes, you may.
Ms. Westbury has written a letter, and she is opposed to the project. And I have Mr. Ryder, who would like to speak.
Good afternoon. My name is George Ryder. I'm with the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum, and I think I was here last year when this was approved, and I think this is a great solution they've worked at for quite some time, and I think that from a functional standpoint, it dramatically improves the patio from the aesthetics for that building, and of course for us at the Maritime Museum, with those sails and everything, it's just great. And I think that building is it's got some basic good bones, but it needs something like this to really set it off. And I think they're, of course, for us at the Maritime Museum with those sails up there, that's just great. But their solution of the way they've handled this sailcloth, this fabric where they tighten it so you don't have any, you're not catching the power of the wind in any way, I think is a very solid solution. So just basically, I think I speak for all of us at the Maritime Museum. We're really excited about this and support it 100%.
Thank you. I'll close public comment and go to questions from the Commission.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Question would be, are these sails retractable?
No.
Nope.
Well, in a matter of a couple of hours, yes.
I'm just thinking if a big southeaster blew in and you knew it was going to be blowing like crazy, as it does, and there's no protection and there's no lee for that particular building, it'd be nice to be able to furl those. I mean, just for the protection of you guys. I mean, if it's possible to do that.
They're designed for. There's a code minimum for any structure in that location, and it's in the highest level of wind. If it were a building or a billboard or anything like that, any kind of built structure. So it's as strong as the building code requires it to be. It's in excess of 60-mile-an-hour winds that it's designed to. It bends but doesn't break, so to speak. But there's also an aspect of potentially seasonally, you could imagine in the shoulder seasons that one or two of the sails might be demounted, to let a little more sun in October when the sun's low, that sort of thing. So they can be with the taking 3 turnbuckles down, you can actually demount one of the sails and roll it up and then put it back up a few months later. So there's that sort of flexibility, but not breakfast to lunch kind of flexibility.
And then my other question would be that the plates that support those, you showed the plates that were along the wall. They're on the inside?
They're actually perpendicular to the glass. So the glass goes like this, and there's an air gap, and then they are perpendicular, taking the wind.
But you wouldn't see them from walking along the breakwater.
No, they're
on
designed
the
to really you're looking at the half-inch dimension as opposed to the 6-inch dimension.
Thank you.
Most of the time.
Okay, I have a question. Is this, remind me, is this a boxwood hedge inside the restaurant? The green
There's
thing?
sort of a hedge
the green
there now.
blocky thing?
It's not formal like a boxwood. The material, and you would know more about that than I. It's probably the right material, but it's still kind of just little individual plants.
How high are those? About say 12 to 18 inches.
Yeah, maybe
something
16
like
to
that?
18 somewhere.
So
in that
they're
range.
like a little float.
It's
I
much
think
looser.
they're a little taller than
Can you
that.
see
Maybe
from
a
here?
little taller.
Originally, it was designed
There you
as a hedge that was,
That
For-
looks like a boxwood type thing that's been
it's
clipped.
that kind of, exactly, yeah. And it was originally a part of the design of the patio. That was intended as being
Okay.
there instead of a railing,
Yeah.
going back a few years.
Yeah, I think I was part of that review many years ago. And so it'll be interesting to see how the boxwood hedge, interacts with the glass is all. It'll be interesting, but if it doesn't work, we'll be looking at substituting that plant material because you want it to be neat and tidy.
The glass, the windscreen is purposely on the outside of that, so that element is actually part of the patio. So you're sitting at the edge, you're sitting next to landscaping, as
Right
opposed to sheet of glass.
next to
So
green.
It's really
Yeah,
important that there be
interesting.
landscaping
Yeah.
around that edge.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's an interesting aspect. Okay.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Curtis?
Beth, I'd like to be sure that I understand the colors and the material for the upright. As I understood, it would be a bronze type color.
Correct. It's
you have-
the top there. There are currently there are railings on the building as well as the edge of the. It's not really the breakwater, but the promenade, if you will, that are a bronze color that's in that top photograph there, and it would be our desire to basically match that color with the
And the
uprights.
sail color would be
Wherever those samples went, it's white.
white.
Yeah, in fact, here's an
Shiny.
actual
So
piece
is
of
it
that's an actual piece of the
this
material.
is exactly
That's
as
the
it would be.
material, right.
So it is a little bit reflective.
Well,
on one side.
it's never been outside before. After
That's true.
it's been in this envelope for quite a while.
Well, after it's out there for a while, it will definitely be less
It'll
reflective.
chalk a little bit, yes.
And is the intent to leave it up year-round?
The intent would be, as David suggested, if we had the ability to take it down in a matter of whatever time, an hour or two, if we knew that there was a strong wind going to be blowing and it would be best to take it down, then we'd take it down. If we were heading into warmer periods in August when temperatures get very warm and it might be preferable to have an open air experience, then we would look to do that. And as David suggested, there may be certain times a year that half is left on, half is left off. But the real intent right now, I think, would be the poster girl for this project. People are not able to sit outside when they would like to out on that front patio without having 4 or 5 heaters around each table. This is the time period for when we would probably have all of the covering so that would help to keep whatever heating we develop within the patio structure.
Any further questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, is it's cleanable. I'm just thinking it's in the harbor, and seagulls do what they do. So if it's somehow easily washable, just so the people upstairs in the Maritime Museum or in the upstairs restaurant aren't looking down at a swath of seagull crap.
That's another advantage of this material versus the sailboat sailcloth. I believe Commissioner House mentioned that at our last meeting was there's trying to weigh that, what does it look like on day one and what does it look like a month later, and this is something that is going to look very good for a long, long time. It will have to be hosed off occasionally.
Any further questions? I'll take comments or a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think this is really a lovely project. I think it's elegant, and it's a solution to a seating problem. It's going to make that whole quadrant of the deck usable year-round. And I think I love the fact that there's curves and angles next to one another. The angles of the naval armory and the curves and angles of the sails are really beautiful. I think it's lovely.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
as you know, I have a real problem about alterations to landmarks. However, I don't think this is actually altering the main building itself. And so I think it's a really nice project, and I support it.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
having been on the subcommittee for years,
Come up with it.
working with Steve and Mr. Van Hoy and colors of the building and so forth, and I realize that they have an expired approval, and I would like to make a motion for approval as submitted, including the building color as submitted, and all the details, and congratulating the architect and the owner for sticking with it and coming up with what we have felt in the past is an incredible solution to a major problem alongside of a very much of a visible landmark building.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Madam Chair?
Oops.
I hate to throw a wrench in the works. I just need to have you make the historic resource findings before you make your call.
Are they here?
I'm not sure.
Usually they are.
Okay. Project requires historic resource findings and findings for alterations. Reopen findings for alterations to an historic landmark that the exterior alterations are being made primarily for the purposes of restoring the landmark to its original appearance or in order to substantially aid in the preservation or enhancement of the landmark. These findings are made.
And you're making final approval.
Yes.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? The motion carries.
Madam Chair? Yes. One more thing for you guys. I used to live in the Florida Keys. We had this type of thing, it was pretty common. One thing I might recommend that you do is you make a complete extra set. When you do want to, they will get messy from the birds and dust. When you want to clean them, you can just take one set out, put the next set up in a matter of an hour, take the other ones off site somewhere and get them hosed or whatever you're going to do. And it also leaves you spare parts in case, because they say it's up to 60-mile wind load, and you'll be amazed how sometimes you get 100-mile-an-hour gusts and it only takes one. So
Okay. Good suggestion.
Thank you, Jake. Good suggestion.
That seems very practical.
Thank you very much. I also want to make a comment, and that is, I want to really, I would like to commend the commissioners that really, including former Commissioner Lavoie, that stepped in and worked this out. This is a great solution, and it's been problematic. So thank you guys and gals who were on that subcommittee.
I would like to echo those remarks, and again, we have been persisting, as have the subcommittee members, and I don't think they knew what they signed up for, but we do appreciate us all getting to a happy conclusion to this, so thank you all.
Ditto.
No.
No, there's one more.
That is 28 West Korea Boulevard, for which I will step down.
How long do you have to step down?
Do we have a date?
Anytime she can do it.
Yeah, really. You're just going to keep working that one, right?
Great. How are you?
Beautiful day.
Why don't you chair this?
No, Don.
Little pool house.
No, Don.
No, all right.
It had to go to Planning Commission because it's coastal. So it's back here for preliminary and final, hopefully. Hopefully.
We're in a final mood, so you're in
I noticed that.
good shape here.
As long as there's no solar panels.
I knew now why you came. You did learn something.
Was that the last? That was probably.
I actually looked to put them on my house, but I don't have enough exposure. It didn't make sense.
Okay, the final item today is 28 West Cabrillo Boulevard. And this is a proposal for a new one-story, 187 net square foot pool house and grill in an existing swimming pool area at the Harbour View Inn. Planning Commission approval is requested for a coastal development permit for this work in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. So, would you...
So, Brian Cornell and Mark Romosanta.
Thank you.
We do have Planning Commission approval on this, so what we're hoping we can do today is actually get preliminary and... Brian Cornell with Mark Romosanta. Once again, we got Planning Commission approval, so we're hoping to get final, preliminary and final. You have seen this before.
and I think we have responded to all of your comments. Flipping quickly, well, maybe I should just quickly remind us that obviously from a site planning standpoint, we had to put it in an area that was not suspect or potentially sensitive. And I think actually in this location it really does tuck nicely in, integrates in with this existing trellis piece. So, what we have tried to do is all the equipment is hidden by the parapet, and that's a good thing. We basically have, you can see on the one side where the trellis comes in, the building becomes the new support for the trellis, and then we've mimicked the trellis ends for these little extensions of the trellis elements along the sides of the building, so it kind of gets ensconced with that trellis or trellage work. And I guess I really that's it. If you have questions.
Well, there's no public here to comment, so I bring it back to the commission for questions. Seeing none, comments? Hearing none, a motion.
Motion to approve.
Robert's looking hard.
Was that final approval? I'll second it.
Probably need to be preliminary and final, technically.
Oh, that's right.
Should have known it was at the end, Robert.
Right. Mr. Commissioner?
Mr. Drury.
I do have a comment, and I think that what I recall of the previous presentations, that there was a little visual problem with looking at, from Cabrillo Boulevard, looking at the pool house, at that trellis, and the hotel itself, and that seems to have been solved. It looks really like it's part of it and always has been part of it, as opposed to something that's been stuck on. And I applaud that. I think that's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you make a motion, Mr. Curtis?
I did make a motion for...
We're waiting for our landscape architect. Oh, okay. We've had a motion and a second for preliminary and final approval. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I think Mark actually enjoys coming
does.
here and just listening to you guys. I, on the other hand.
Where did the solar...
Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved. Second.
Meeting adjourned.